fucking metal show. Welcome to Big Beats fucking metal show.
Yo, what up, bitches, and welcome back to Big Pete's Metal Show. And today we're gonna do another one of the fucking countdown videos. We haven't done it in like what, a fat 2.5 months, 3 months maybe. I don't know. But what year did we leave off on? 94, I think. Today we're doing 1995. I hope we left off on 1994 because, like I just stated 6 seconds ago, we're on 95. And this is gonna be the top 15 list. There's only 15 albums I really give a fuck about in 1995. That's why it's not 10 or 20. So, without further ado, eat ass and let's fucking jump into the list. Coming in at number 15, we got the last Sammy Hagar album in the Van Halen era, Balance. Pretty weird fucking album cover, but it's an okay album. There's a lot of good, decent tracks on it. I don't mind listening to it every now and then. I'm not against the Sammy Hagar era. I think he was a better fit for Van Halen anyway. Fight me, fight me, fight me, fuck you. Okay, coming in at number 14, we got Iron Maiden with their 10th album, The X Factor, which is the first album to feature Blaze Bayley, which was not by all means a Bruce Dickinson clone. He was quite the opposite. It was like their first album with a new singer. It's an alright album. There's pretty decent tracks on it. It's not the worst album, but it is what it is. And coming in at number 13, we have the mighty Masters of Weird Metal, Voivod, with their album Negatron. I think this is a pretty fucking solid album. It's the first without their longtime singer, and I believe the bass player took over vocal duties. There's a couple of tracks that I really like on here, and there's a couple of just straight up weird fucking tracks. But it's all for the betterment of metal. So let's move on to number 12. Number 12, we got Sodom with Masquerade in Blood. My only gripe with this album is the production. I feel like there's too much drums and not enough guitar, but it's still fucking heavy nonetheless, and Sodom is a great fucking band. Coming in at number 11, just missing the top 10, would be Ozzy's comeback album in this era, if you will, Osmosis. Those fucking puns of an album titles. That's right, Osmosis would have been higher on the list because I love me some Ozzy, but there's a lot of seems slower, less energized tracks on this album, so it retains its its place in the list a little higher up. But coming in at number 10 would be his old band at the time, that is right, Black Sabbath, with Forbidden. I understand this is not a popular Black Sabbath album among Sabbath fans, but I love the Tony Martin era. I've said it before and I'll say it again. This is a pretty good album. Tony Martin is a pretty good fucking singer, and if you disagree, then you're probably a fucking faggot. Coming in at number 9, we have Alice in Chains and their third album, the last of the new material to feature vocalist Lane Staley. It's a pretty good album. I've always liked the album cover with the dog with the 3 legs, just kind of symbolizes their third album. Not a whole hell of a lot I want to say about that. It's just, you know, this is a predominantly metal list, but you do gotta stick some grunge in there because I do love me some grunge. Where are we at? Number 8. Number 8, we got Creators, Cause for Conflict. While they abandoned thrash metal with the previous release, this was kind of a return to form. It's like a straight Slayer. It's like a copy of Divine Intervention, but done Creator's way, in my opinion. But that's not a bad thing because 1, I like that album. 2, I fucking love Creator. And 3, if they took their influences from Slayer, then that's fucking awesome because Slayer is like my favorite band. Anyway, moving on to number 6, we got another unpopular album by Flotsam and Jetsam, Drift. Now, this is more treading on like the progressive side, but there's a whole lot. There's like pretty much every song on this album I enjoy. They're all good tunes, And a lot of this list you might think is deplorable, as your average fucking Metallum commenter, album reviewer, fucking Metal Archives fuckface. Yeah, but there's a lot of unpopular albums on this list for 1995, but then again, 1995 was an unpopular year for metal. It was a weird fucking year for music. Some people think the 90s were the best. I for one think it's a good decade, but that's a whole nother fucking video. So let's move on. Probably my most controversial opinion yet. Number 6, we got Anthrax with Stomp 442. Now I understand this is the worst or the second worst Anthrax album in anyone's opinion, but Anthrax is one of my favorite bands of all time, and that album is just fucking, it's good. It's not Anthrax like what you're used to listening to, their previous works, but it's a fucking good album, and it's just phenomenal for driving too. You stick it in your car CD player, and you're gonna be fucking speeding like a motherfucker. Anyway, coming in at number 5, we're down to the top 5 now. We got White Zombie's final album, Astro Creep 2000. That is, of course, the shortened name of the album because they like to have full sentences as their album titles. But anyway, there's just a lot of good tracks on here. It's a clear progression from their previous La Sexorcisto. It's White Zombie's just an awesome, solid band, and Rob Zombie has done excellent work with White Zombie and in his own solo stuff as well. But moving on to number 4, probably the highest. I believe this is the highest this band has gotten yet. We got German thrashers Tankard with the almost self-titled album, The Tankard. In my opinion, this is a criminally underrated album, and pretty much every single song on here is phenomenal. There's a lot to offer. It's a little bit different. It's actually quite different from the rest of their discography, and I just think it's a phenomenal disc. Moving on to number 3, we have Joey Belladonna, as you know, ex-singer of Anthrax at this point in time, with his first solo album with his band Belladonna. And it's self-titled, and it's pretty much I love everything about this album. Every single song is great. There's 13 tracks. I think it gets close to an hour long, and while usually I would be afraid of albums like this starting to drag on, this doesn't, and I actually wish there was 2 or 3 more tracks on this album because it's fucking great. Coming in at number 2, we have, you might see a trend here from previous videos, we got Death with Symbolic. And of course, it's hard to argue with the masterfulness of Chuck Schuldiner and all his work with Death, especially this album. It should really be no explanation why it is number 2 on my list. Most people will argue it should be number 1, but in my humble opinion, my number 1 pick for 1995, we don't have any honorable mentions, by the way, for this year, as I told you, these are the only 15 albums I give a fuck about. We have, number 1, NOLA by Down. The infamous supergroup formed in the mid-90s with singer Phil Anselmo from Pantera, a couple of guys from Corrosion of Conformity, and I apologize, I don't know the rest of the band. The only reason I got into this band in the first place was because of Phil Anselmo. I learned he was in it, and holy fuck was I glad I picked this album up way back in the day when I did, because it's just fantastic track after fantastic track. With Anselmo at the helm of the vocals, you would think it's a lot like a Pantera record, but you'd be surprised. It's similar enough, but very different. And it's just a unique sounding album with a lot of great tracks, fucking instant classics, and just the whole thing, the way it was put together, the production, the way the drums sound particularly. I don't usually comment on that, but the production is fantastic, and I just love that album. Anyway, that was the whole list. Top 15 albums of 1995. don't comment below because you're gonna be one of the 3 people who watch this video. That'll be it for this fucking video. So I hope you listen to metal, and I hope you keep it brutal.